What's up, guys? It's your girl Nicole.Young, and I get a ton of questions about getting into software engineering, web development in order to start your own business or side hustle, or even to land that dream job so that you can start living a life of more flexibility and freedom. And I wanted to dedicate this video to answering some of my most frequently asked questions. This is actually the first video of a series that I will be continuing to do that's going to be answering all of those hard-hitting questions that you might have, and also to guide you step by step through the process of going from a complete beginner into a successful developer. I want to show that it is completely possible for you to get into this field and to live the life that you've always dreamed of, to be able to use technology, specifically development, as a tool to get from where you are right now to your dream life. Because I truly believe that if I could do it, that literally anyone can. So make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any of the videos in this series. I think it'll be a really good one. So in this video, we are going to be answering the 8 most frequently asked questions that I get on a regular basis from people who are making a switch into tech or just starting to take their learning journey and figuring out code seriously. I just want to say that the answer to these questions are my own opinion. And if you don't agree with them, that's totally fine. You could just leave a comment down below. We could discuss it. But for the most part, this is just based on my own experience, either on the learning journey or where I'm at now as a software engineer. So just, I guess, take that and do with it what you will. So the first question that I get a lot is like, just what the difference is between, when I use the term software engineer or web developer or just developer, programmer, like what is the actual difference between all of those, and which should you choose if there is a difference? And so what I would say is, in terms of the difference between like a web developer or a software developer, there is a difference there. A web developer is primarily focused on creating things for the web, for a browser, whereas a software developer would be creating it for an operating system, for an actual computer to be running the code for whatever that application is. So there is a difference there, but when I use the term developer versus programmer versus engineer, usually I'm keeping it at that top level and keeping it really broad. So if you ever hear me using the terms interchangeably, it's usually because I'm just referring to people who are creating applications, right? And for me, what I would say is like, I am a software engineer by training. Like I went through a bootcamp as a full stack software engineer, but a lot of the things that I am learning and developing for the business that I'm building is mainly focused in web right now. So there is a lot of overlap in the skills that you would use. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would mainly focus on what specifically you want to be able to build and just go from there. The titles, to me, I don't really hang up too much on the titles. To me, it doesn't really matter. But if it does matter to you, just like really delve into what you specifically want to build and then go from there. The next question I get so often is choosing between fields like software engineering or development and data analytics or cybersecurity or all of the many different thriving career paths that there are in tech right now. And I completely understand why this would be a question, a concern, or something that keeps you up at night, because it definitely was something that stressed me out when I decided to take learning how to code and getting into tech seriously. And here's what I'll say about it. You don't want to pick a career just because the average salary that Google is telling you or the job growth projections are higher than another. I think that in general, most career paths in tech are growing and are set to, do numbers in the next 10, 20 years and so on. So hanging up on which one is higher than the others isn't really going to benefit you. I'm an advocate of living the type of life that you want and living a life that has freedom and flexibility and that you control, and using tech as a tool to get that. Using the career path that you choose as a tool to get that. And I think part of it is being able to enjoy the job that you do so that it doesn't feel like it's taking over your life, but rather just like enhancing it, right? So when I was first getting started, almost went down the path of data analytics and doing a bootcamp for data analytics when I was first getting started. And I'm so glad I didn't, because when I took a step back and really thought about the things that I like to do, none of those things had anything to do with what I would have to do as a data analyst. And I realized I don't like working with data. I don't care about big data, in terms of myself. It's important, but I'm not passionate about it. And I'm not passionate about numbers or any of those things, right? But what I am passionate about is I love creating user experiences. I love being able to think about the end user that the product that I'm creating could help. And I love creating really beautiful, visually appealing things with code. That's fun for me. And the process of learning and growing in the career field of software engineering and development is fun for me also. So researching the top trends in, how things are built and what things look like and what the user experiences are and how that translates into code. All of those things are fun for me and interesting to me. And so I actually enjoy the process of keeping up to date with the industry that I'm in, whereas I feel like it would feel like a chore if I was doing it for data analysis or cybersecurity or any of that. So when you're trying to make a decision, just kind of focus on the work and which one you enjoy doing more over how much money you may make and what the job projections are, because I can pretty much say that getting into tech is going to secure you regardless of what field you're getting into, because most tech fields are growing, budding, thriving, and becoming more incorporated into every other industry that is out there. So I don't think you have a problem there. Just focus on what you really enjoy doing. The rest will work itself out. Another question I get often is, can I get into development or programming as insert whatever your level of experience is here? So as a new student, as someone who studied literature, as someone who was a teacher prior, or you guys get the point. As someone who did whatever unrelated or seemingly unrelated field that there is. And the answer is yes, absolutely. I was definitely someone that didn't think it was possible for me to learn how to code or to get into tech in general, because I had a background where I studied psychology with an emphasis in sports, and also then had job experience in marketing and social media. And to me, none of those things felt related to what I wanted to do in terms of software engineering. But now I realize that's not true at all. Those things work so well together. And now even the business that I'm building, I'm able to marry all of those experiences. And so what I will say is that I saw a tweet the other day, and if I can find it, I'm gonna share it here. But there is a tech job in every field and industry or company that you can think of. There are tech jobs in all of them. Why? Because now tech is a non-negotiable for company growth, expansion, and success. Like, you can't have a thriving company without tech at this point. That's a fact. So what I will say is, it doesn't matter what previous experience or industry you are in, you can infuse that experience with your experience as a developer or programmer, and get a job in something that marries the two of those things, and just be able to have this perfect combination of thought processes, experiences that you can infuse into the job that you do. I wish I could say that a little bit better, but my point is, you can incorporate what you are doing now, or what you have experience in now, with whatever you end up doing with code. And I think in a lot of ways, having experience outside of tech can make you a better developer in certain industries than someone who only had tech experience. Because I think you can speak to the users that you are building things for a little bit more, and a good developer, in my opinion, is one that can build something that is intuitive for the user. And if you know how that user already thinks, then you're halfway there. Next question is, what are the steps, or can you give me advice on how to go from where I'm at right now to being a software engineer or developer, whatever you want to call it? Short answer is, make sure that you are subscribed and that you like this video, turn the notifications on, and also follow me on Instagram, because I'm going to be sharing a lot of that through the rest of this year and into the future on those step-by-step processes that you need to take to go from a beginner to gaining the skills that you need to become a successful developer. But in general, number one, you need to make a plan. Having direction is one of the most important things when you're getting started, because it is so easy to get stuck in a process where you're constantly coding, but you're not actually learning anything new, or getting yourself closer to where you're supposed to be. And that sucks, because you could be spending a ton of time learning, but you're never learning the real world stuff that you need to learn. So make sure that you're following, of course, so I can share some more of that with you all. But making a plan is super important. The other thing that you should do, start with HTML and CSS. If you don't know anything else, start with HTML and CSS. Understand how those things work, how they're put together, how we've gotten where we are today with the web, and starting with those two things. And then build from there, learning like a programmatic or functional language, which we'll get into in a second. And as always, learn through building projects and not just through tutorials and videos and that kind of thing. Make sure that you are building as often as you possibly can. Another thing that I will touch heavily on throughout this series is how to learn more effectively. It's important. This next question is probably the most frequently asked question that I get. It's also probably my least favorite, but that is, what language should I learn? So I guess the reason why I don't love this question is because it really just depends on you and what you want to learn. I would suggest, like, depending on what you want to do ultimately, just starting with the most frequently used or common language for that. A good example is that if you want to do mobile development, to learn the native language of whatever operating system you want to focus on. So if you want to focus on iOS development, learn Swift. If you want to focus on Android development, learn whatever language is native to that operating system. I don't think there's like a need or necessity to learn tons of languages or multiple, especially when you're just getting started. Just focus on one and become an expert in that one and be done with it. But if you are someone that's just getting started, if development is the area that you want to get into, then I would suggest JavaScript. Now, I'm a little biased because I am a full stack JavaScript developer, meaning that's the only language I know and it's the only one that I'm fluent in. It's the only one I use, but it's the only one I've needed. So I don't plan on learning any new languages anytime soon because I'm good with what I have. But I also would suggest it because every developer that I've ever talked to, met, and connected with that is more senior to me, no matter what they do as their job, they either started with JavaScript or use it in their regular job on a regular basis. So having some basic knowledge of JavaScript is a good idea anyway. So I've talked to people who, I've talked to a developer who creates Google Chrome extensions. That's his whole thing. He's a freelancer. He builds Google Chrome extensions and charges a monthly fee for them. He uses JavaScript. That's where he started. I've talked to a Google developer who focuses on iOS development, and although his main language is Swift, he uses JavaScript and has used it. I've talked to or friends with developers who work on software as a service type companies for applications like that. Guess what? They are using JavaScript, specifically frameworks like React, to do what they do as a developer. And guess what? They are all successful. They're all making bank. They're all doing well. And they are experts in JavaScript and maybe that other language that they ended up specializing in. But for the most part, guess what? They started with JS. So guess what? I don't feel too bad about starting with JS, and I feel like everything that I've ever wanted to do and needed to do, I'm able to do with JS. But I also think that because JavaScript is such a beginner-friendly language, if you decide you want to specialize in a certain language like Swift or whatever else is out there and then learn JavaScript later, I think that would be possible. It just really depends on the end goal that you have and what kind of developer you want to be. The next question is, how do I find mentorship? So I think that mentorship is really important. I think that, when you are going from being a beginner and trying to advance and be successful in this career field, just like any other career field, having mentorship is really important and can be really special. But I do think that there is a way about going about it that is correct, and there are ways to go about it that aren't correct. Ways that can be more successful and ways that aren't as successful. I personally would love to mentor people eventually, and if I ever start a program or something like that where I can, I will definitely let you guys know. You'll be the first to know. But one thing that I've noticed, when people reach out to me and ask me, or, in my personal experience when I was had less experience and didn't really know much, some things that I know you shouldn't be doing. Don't ever cold call or message someone and ask them to be your mentor. Hey, I want to do this and you do it. You look like you're successful. I want to ask that you'll be my mentor. That's like the worst way to go about it. Don't do that. Just don't do it. I've done this in the past, so I'm not like judging anyone who might do that or who has, but a better way to do it is just to look at what value you can add to that person and start off by putting the focus on them. Hey, I want to know more about you and what you do. Hey, I would love to see how we can find some sort of synergy between the two of us, a mutually beneficial friendship or some sort. I think the misconception that people have about mentorship is that it's a one-way street where the person who is more senior is just giving all of this information and guidance, and that's actually not what mentorship is at all. It is a two-way street where you are giving value in an area that you can, and that mentor in turn is helping guide you on your career field. I don't see it very often where mentorship is a one-way street. So if you are trying to go about it, just make sure you're going about it in a way where you're trying to find a mutually beneficial connection with that person. Yeah, just do it that way. But we'll definitely talk about it in the near future in this series, because this is a topic that is important to talk about. The next question is, what path should I choose to learn? Now, me being a self-taught / bootcamp learned person with this field, have experience in both, and I've made a couple of videos about this topic, but what I will say is that neither are a bad choice. There are really good ways to learn on your own, and there are really good boot camps out there. Not all boot camps are great, but there are some really solid ones out there. And no matter what decision you think is best for you, either way, you're always going to have to learn how to teach yourself. Not all boot camps teach you how to develop those skills, so that's something to think about if you want to do a boot camp, just making sure you're finding one that's going to give you those skills. It really just depends on your time commitment and your capacity right now. I understand that for a lot of you, you might have a full-time job that you need to maintain, or children that obviously are a priority, or other things, especially as people of color. I feel like we are taking care of each other and everyone else a lot. That's a lot of the time the case. So you might not have a whole full-time time slot to devote to your learning. That's okay. Just decide what time capacity you do have and do research on what the best method for you to learn would be. If you can swing a full-time boot camp, do it for sure. But if you can't, there are part-time options, but there are also plenty of ways for you to learn really well, learn everything that you need on your own, becoming self-taught. It does sometimes take a little bit more planning and guidance, but I got you. Just stick around for this series. And the final question is, how long does it take to learn software engineering? And if I wanted to be a little smart aleck, I would probably say it is a lifelong learning commitment, because that is true. But I definitely think that it could take as little as 3 to 6 months, but it could take as long as a year or two to learn. For me, because I started self-taught, it took me about 18 months in total to go from when I decided to take it seriously to, where I can now say that I can build a full stack application and am qualified for pretty much any junior level software engineering job that's out there. Not that I want them, but just I'm qualified for them. So yeah, it really is dependent on you, and like I said, your time capacity and commitment to learning. But I don't think there's any right or wrong way to go about it. If the longer method is what fits your schedule, do that. But don't wait just because you don't have time to devote to a full-time thing. Because no matter how long it takes you, if you start now, you're gonna be that much closer than you were yesterday. And I just think that's the most important thing, So there are so many other questions out there, and if you have more, feel free to drop them in the comments or DM me, because I'm answering a ton of questions all the time and love doing that. I love to be able to help any way I can. But like I said before, if you are a beginner, whether that means a hobby coder, kind of dabbled, or you are fresh into making the decision to make a switch into development, definitely make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And also, if you're on Instagram, consider following me there too, because I am devoting the rest of this year to a series that is going to help take you step by step on everything that it takes to go from that beginner phase into a successful developer, including the things that I feel like people just don't talk about enough. So make sure you stick around and know that I love you and I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Peace.